No, not everything happens for a reason. That sentence alone sounds like heresy to a world desperate for meaning. We love to comfort ourselves with the idea that everything happens for a reason, as if there were a divine script behind every heartbreak, every loss, every small and quiet tragedy. But pause for a moment. If everything happens for a reason, then what reason explains the suffering of a child born into war, poverty, or disease? What reason explains the death of a kind soul, or the loneliness of someone who gave nothing but love? What reason justifies pain that teaches nothing, loss that leaves only emptiness? Maybe there isn't one. Maybe things simply happen. And the rest, the reasons, the meanings, the lessons, are stories we tell ourselves so that the pain feels less senseless. Human beings cannot bear the weight of meaninglessness. We need reasons, not for truth, but for survival. We want to believe that there is order in chaos, intention behind suffering, a lesson hidden in every tear. We cannot stand the thought that life might be both beautiful and arbitrary. So we invent reasons. We call it fate. We call it karma. We say, it happened to make me stronger. But perhaps karma is not a system of reward and punishment, only a web of cause and effect, vast and impersonal. And perhaps not every event is a lesson. Some things just are. Buddhism doesn't teach that everything happens for a reason. It teaches that everything happens and everything changes. Suffering doesn't come from what happens to us. It comes from our refusal to let go, our obsession with asking why. When we search for a reason, we resist reality. When we accept what is, we return to peace. Here lies a quiet paradox. The more we search for meaning, the further we drift from truth. The more we try to make sense of pain, the deeper we sink into it. But when we stop, when we simply see things as they are, clarity arises. A grieving mother says, "It happened for a reason." She hopes the words will soften her pain. But deep down, she doesn't need a reason. She needs permission to feel, to mourn without justification, to ache without meaning. Because healing doesn't begin with why. It begins with acceptance that there may be no why at all. The universe owes us no explanation. It doesn't promise fairness or balance or purpose. It simply is. Only the human mind insists that life must make sense. But if everything were predestined, if every moment had a reason written by some cosmic hand, would we still be free? Would there still be space for compassion, for choice, for awakening? The Buddha once said, "Not everything is determined by karma, and not everything is random. Events arise from countless conditions, but no one is behind the curtain pulling the strings. Life is an infinite web of causes and conditions, without a single author. The reason we search for is simply our craving for control. Imagine standing at the edge of the sea. A wave comes, erases your footprints. You could curse the wave and demand a reason for its cruelty. But the ocean has no reason. The wave has no intention. The wind simply blows, the water simply moves, and life simply flows. Only your mind insists that it must mean something. And yet, when you stop asking why, you begin to hear. You hear the waves as they are, not as metaphors, not as lessons, but as truth. That sound is silence in motion. That moment is enlightenment. Everything happens for a reason. It's not entirely wrong. It's just too small for the vastness of reality. It comforts, but it also deceives. It makes pain look like a puzzle to solve instead of an experience to live through. Buddhism whispers a gentler truth. You don't need a reason to find peace, because peace doesn't depend on reasons. We suffer not because life is cruel, but because we insist that it must make sense. When we stop demanding meaning, life becomes clear. And maybe that's the real lesson, that sometimes The greatest freedom is found in accepting meaninglessness. The awakened ones don't chase explanations. They see that wisdom is not about knowing, but not needing to know. They release the need to assign purpose, to justify, to explain. Because in impermanence, all reasons dissolve. One day you cry because you've lost someone. Another day you smile for the same reason. So tell me, which moment carries the real meaning? Perhaps both. Perhaps neither. Perhaps meaning itself is just another wave. The Buddha never promised that life would be fair. He only revealed that suffering exists. And when you accept that, you no longer need to justify the pain. You simply see it, and in that seeing it softens. Enlightenment doesn't come from asking why. It comes from the moment you no longer have to. When the mind stops spinning stories, the heart becomes still. And in that stillness, truth appears. Maybe instead of saying, everything happens for a reason, we can say, everything happens, and I am learning to see. Everything happens, and I am learning to be here for it. Not to explain it, not to fix it, just to see it clearly. Because sometimes there is no reason at all. And that's the most profound reason of all. When the search for reasons finally falls silent, something subtle awakens. It's not comfort, not joy, not even relief. It's space. A quiet space where the mind no longer demands explanations and the heart no longer bargains with life. That's where living truly begins. We spend most of our lives trying to make sense of things that were never meant to be explained. We analyze our pain. We dissect our failures. We build stories around why people came and left, why things rose and fell. We want closure. We want logic. We want the universe to apologize for not following our plan. But life was never a contract. It's a current, and the current doesn't explain itself. It just flows. The practice, then, is not to understand, but to be with, to breathe in the chaos and not shrink from it, to sit in the middle of uncertainty and not label it wrong, to meet each moment as it is, raw, wild, unreasoned, and still call it home. We think understanding brings peace, but often it's the opposite. Understanding can trap us in endless loops of interpretation. Why did this happen? What does it mean? What should I learn from it? But the truth is, peace comes not from understanding, but from allowing things to exist without needing to pin them down, allowing yourself to feel without needing to define what it means, allowing life to unfold without demanding that it follows a script. The Buddha didn't teach us how to explain suffering. He taught us how to see it, how to live with it, how to let it pass through us like wind through an open field. Suffering isn't a puzzle to be solved. It's a teacher that appears only when we stop running. And the lesson is always the same. Stop asking why. Start being here. When something painful happens, our instinct is to fix it or to find meaning in it. We tell ourselves stories to avoid the discomfort of uncertainty. It's meant to be. It's for the best. It's part of God's plan. But what if none of that is true? What if pain doesn't come to teach you anything? It simply comes because you are alive. You breathe in joy. You breathe in sorrow. Both are part of the same air. One doesn't exist to justify the other. They coexist, they move, they pass through, and when you stop dividing them, stop labeling one as good and the other as bad, you begin to see that both are simply life, wearing different faces. That realization is freedom, not the kind that shouts or celebrates, but the kind that sits quietly in your chest and whispers, yes, this too belongs. To live without reasons is not to live without care. It's not apathy. It's not indifference. It's the deepest compassion because it comes from seeing clearly. When you no longer demand that life be fair or meaningful, you begin to see the suffering of others without judgment. You stop asking why they're the way they are, and you start seeing how deeply human they are. The person who hurt you, maybe they didn't have a reason either. They acted from their own confusion, pain, or ignorance, just as you sometimes do. In understanding that, forgiveness stops being an act of generosity. It becomes a natural response of wisdom. You don't forgive because everything happened for a reason. You forgive because you see that everything happens from causes and conditions, and no one truly stands apart from them. That's compassion, seeing that there is no reason for suffering, only endless chains of cause and effect. And when you see that, the need to blame dissolves. The need to justify disappears. All that remains is tenderness. Living without reasons is the essence of mindfulness. It's the art of returning again and again to this moment without the weight of explanation. You wake up and feel sadness. You don't ask why. You just breathe and notice it like a passing cloud. You feel joy. You don't hold it, don't analyze it. You let it shimmer and fade. Each feeling, each thought, each sensation, they rise, they fall, they move on. This is what it means to live awake. Not to control, not to define, but to witness. To be here with whatever is happening, without story, without resistance. And strangely, when you stop needing everything to make sense, life starts making a deeper kind of sense. Not the intellectual kind, but the lived kind. A sense that can't be spoken, only felt. Think of a candle. It doesn't ask why it burns. It doesn't demand a reason for its flame. It simply gives light, knowing that the shine is also to vanish. We, too, are like that candle, temporary, flickering, yet luminous in our impermanence. And perhaps that's all the meaning we ever needed. To burn fully, knowing we can never last. When you let go of reasons, you let go of the illusion of control. And what remains is pure presence, a direct encounter with life as it is. It's not an escape from responsibility. It's the birth of true wisdom, because now you act not from fear or justification, but from clarity. You don't do what's right because it has a reason. You do what's right because it's right. In this moment, with this breath, in the quiet of not knowing, compassion grows. In the stillness of not reasoning, understanding deepens. And in the acceptance of impermanence, you finally touch peace, the kind that doesn't depend on outcomes or logic. So when the next wave comes, don't rush to name it. Don't ask what it means or why it arrived. Just stand, breathe, and feel its cool touch against your feet. Because one day, another wave will erase even that moment. And that too will be okay. The ocean doesn't ask why it moves. The wind doesn't ask why it blows. The flower doesn't ask why it blooms and dies. And yet everything happens perfectly without reason. So must we. Maybe the point was never to understand life, but to be intimate with it. To live each breath, each loss, each joy, as if it were enough. Because it is. Meaning is not found by searching for reasons. Meaning is born the moment you stop needing one. And when you finally stop asking why, the universe doesn't answer. It just smiles, because you become the answer yourself. When the heart stops demanding reasons, compassion naturally blooms, because only a quiet mind can truly see another. When you no longer insist that life must fit your version of fairness, you begin to understand suffering, not conceptually, but intimately. You see the fear in another's anger. You see the pain behind their harshness. You realize that every person is doing the best they can with the consciousness they have at this moment, and that includes you. Compassion is not pity. It is not forgiveness as a performance. It is the soft recognition that there are no villains, only beings lost in confusion. And that realization melts away the walls between you and them. To live compassionately is to move through the world with gentle eyes. You speak with kindness not because it's moral, but because it feels natural. You help not to fix, but to connect. You listen not to reply, but to understand. That is reasonless love, love without agenda, love without condition. The love that doesn't ask why, only says yes. 4. The practice of acceptance. The deepest practice is acceptance, the quiet surrender to what is. Acceptance is not passive. It's not saying, I give up. It's saying, I see this moment clearly, and I will not fight it. This is where spiritual maturity is born. When joy comes, you smile without fear of losing it. When sorrow comes, you sit beside it without trying to fix it. And when nothing seems to make sense, you rest in the knowing that sense itself is a fragile human need, not a cosmic law. Acceptance doesn't mean life stops changing. It means you stop being torn apart by the change. You move with it, like a tree bending with the wind. And because you bend, you do not break. This is not weakness, it's wisdom, because what you resist persists, and what you embrace transforms. 5. The practice of presence. Finally, all practices return to this, presence, to simply be here. Not in the story, not in the future, not in the reason, here. In this breath, in this sound, in this moment that asks nothing from you except awareness. Presence is freedom from explanation. It's the silence before thought, the stillness beneath desire. It is what remains when you stop chasing, fixing, and justifying. The mind loves questions. The heart loves answers. But awareness loves nothing. It only is. To rest in that is to live awakened, not as a monk in a cave, but as a human being walking through noise with a quiet soul. When you drink your tea, drink it fully. When you walk, feel the ground beneath your feet. When you speak, speak slowly, truthfully. And when you listen, truly listen. That is the practice. That is enough. The silent revolution. Living without reasons is not dramatic. It doesn't look like enlightenment on a mountaintop. It looks like patience in a conversation. It looks like breathing before reacting. It looks like a quiet smile when plans fall apart. It looks like peace, not because life got easier, but because you stopped needing to be easy. The true revolution is inward. When you stop seeking reasons, you stop feeding chaos. When you stop defending your story, you start healing. And when you stop arguing with reality, you finally meet it. That meeting, raw, unfiltered, honest, is what the Buddha called liberation. Closing meditation. Sit quietly for a moment. Breathe. Feel your chest rise and fall. Notice the sounds around you. The hum of life that never asks for meaning. In this small silence, the entire universe breathes with you. You don't need to fix anything. You don't need to explain your existence. You only need to be. This ordinary, breathing, fleeting moment is the whole teaching, the whole path, the whole peace. When you stop asking life to justify itself, you begin to live as life itself. And that is the end of seeking. When philosophy is no longer an idea but a breath, when stillness becomes a quiet rhythm of how you move through the world, that is when wisdom becomes life. You can spend years reading about peace, talking about mindfulness, chasing the promise of enlightenment, but none of it matters if your heart still trembles at the first touch of noise. True peace begins not when life becomes easy, But when you stop needing it to be easy, it begins when you can walk through chaos and still remember the still point inside you. We often imagine awakening as something that happens on a mountain, in solitude, far from the noise of the world. But the truth is, real awakening begins in the most ordinary places, in traffic, in conversations, in failure, in the restless hours of waiting. The world doesn't need you to escape it. It needs you to see it clearly, to bring your silence into its noise, your kindness into its sharp corners. To live without why is not to give up ambition or meaning. It is to stop needing everything to have a purpose before it deserves your attention. When you work with your whole being, not for praise, not for recognition, but because the doing itself is sacred. Every small task can become a meditation if you bring your full presence into it. The craftsman sanding a piece of wood, the mother preparing a meal, the writer forming each word. When done with awareness, these acts become prayer. The purpose is not the result. The purpose is the depth of your attention while doing it. In the same way, love without why is the purest kind. Most of us love because we need something: comfort, safety, understanding. But when love no longer needs to be earned or explained, it becomes limitless. It doesn't cling, it doesn't demand, it doesn't shrink when rejected. It just flows. To love someone without trying to own them, to care for another soul without asking them to complete you, that is freedom. That is a kind of love that survives change, distance, even endings, because it's not built on conditions. It's built on awareness. And the same applies to creation. When you create from emptiness, when the need for recognition dissolves, your work begins to breathe on its own. The poet no longer writes to be seen. He writes because the words need to exist. The musician no longer performs to be adored. He plays because sound itself is alive within him. This is creativity without ego, art without justification. The moment you stop trying to be original, you become authentic. And from that authenticity, beauty arises naturally, not forced, not planned, but real. Then comes the hardest part: staying awake in the middle of chaos. The world will always move fast. People will always misunderstand. Plans will fall apart. But if you can remain still inside it, not numb, not indifferent, just still, you become the calm at the center of the storm. You learn that peace is not the absence of noise. It's a refusal to let noise define you. When others are shouting, you listen. When others hurry, you breathe. When others fight to be right, you choose to be kind. That's not weakness. It's mastery. Life will test the stillness again and again. It will take what you love, change what you depend on, and strip away every illusion of control. And yet, in that unraveling, something sacred is born: acceptance. You stop fighting what is. You stop asking life to explain itself. You simply bow to the mystery and say, I don't understand, but I am here. That simple presence is the heart of wisdom. The more silent you become, the more alive everything feels. The smallest moments start to shimmer. Sunlight through a window, the sound of footsteps, the warmth of a cup of tea. Nothing grand, nothing spectacular, just ordinary life, suddenly illuminated. You realize that enlightenment isn't a moment of lightning. It's a soft unfolding, a quiet awareness that has always been here, waiting for you to notice. In that seeing, the world transforms, not because it has changed, but because you have. You no longer divide life into sacred and ordinary. You no longer chase joy or resist sorrow. You simply live. You eat when you're hungry. You rest when you're tired. You speak truthfully. You forgive quickly. You love fully. You let things come and go without holding too tightly. This is the art of living without why. It is not a philosophy you follow. It is a way of being you embody. And so, the great paradox of awakening reveals itself. The moment you stop searching for meaning, life becomes meaningful. The moment you stop trying to make peace, peace begins to make you. And the moment you stop asking, why am I here? You realize you've been here all along. Zen says, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Life doesn't change. The seeing does. The same routines, the same laughter, the same heartbreaks, but you are no longer lost in them. You move through the world like water through a riverbed, touching everything, holding nothing. To live like this is not to become detached, but deeply engaged with presence, not control. You listen more, speak less. You act without rush. You forgive because resentment feels heavy. You smile because being alive is miracle enough. You no longer need to explain life. You simply live it. And maybe that is the final wisdom. That life doesn't ask for reasons. It never did. The sun rises without purpose. The rain falls without explanation. The heart beats not because it understands, but because it must. You, too, are part of that rhythm, a wave in the vast ocean of existence. You don't need to justify your place in it. You just need to move with it, breathe with it, live with it. When you finally stop asking why, a deep silence fills the space where all the questions used to be. That silence is not empty. It is alive, pulsing, infinite. It is the sound of life breathing through you. And in that soundless understanding, you realize this is it, this moment, this breath, this heartbeat. There is nothing to seek, nowhere to go, no reason needed. Just be here, just live, and let life, in all its reasonless beauty, live through you. There comes a moment when words fall silent. Not because there's nothing left to say, but because language can no longer reach what you have begun to see. That moment is the threshold between life as we know it and life as it truly is. Beyond all meaning, beyond all reasons, beyond all wanting, there's only stillness. And that stillness is not an end, it is home. We spend most of our lives running. Chasing success, chasing love, chasing answers. We think that if we go far enough, achieve enough, understand enough, we'll finally arrive somewhere safe. But what if safety was never at the end of the road? What if it was always here, in this breath, in this fleeting second, in this gentle awareness that watches you even as you read these words? Everything you love will change form. Every person you hold dear will one day become memory. The body you now inhabit will dissolve into the earth that once carried you. And yet, the part of you that sees, the silent witness behind every experience, it never comes and it never goes. It is not born and it cannot die. It is the space in which all things appear and disappear. We fear death because we mistake it for the end of the story. But death is not an ending. It is a return, a dissolving back into the silence that gave birth to everything. It is not darkness swallowing light, but light becoming too vast for the eyes to see. In the same way, every ending in life is a small rehearsal for that great surrender. Every goodbye, every loss, every falling apart teaches you how to let go with grace. The truth is, life and death are not opposites. They are two sides of the same movement. Life is death in motion, and death is life at rest. The flower that blooms today dies tomorrow, but its death feeds the soil so another may grow. The wave rises and falls, but the ocean never disappears. So when something ends, bow to it, When someone leaves, thank them silently for reminding you of impermanence. Because impermanence is not cruelty, it is compassion in disguise. It teaches us to love more deeply because we know nothing lasts. In Buddhism, they say, the moment you learn to die before you die, you are free. To die before you die means to let go of everything you cling to, the identity, the past, the stories you use to define yourself. It is not physical death. It is the death of illusion. When you allow those illusions to dissolve, you discover something astonishing. There is no you to protect, no me to lose, only the vastness of awareness itself. And that awareness is eternal. So, when you lose someone, don't rush to fill the silence. Sit with it. Listen to it. That silence is sacred. It is not empty. It is full of everything that cannot die. Love doesn't vanish. It simply changes shape. Presence doesn't disappear. It becomes invisible. You don't stop existing. You expand beyond form. The wave doesn't die when it returns to the sea. It becomes a sea. If you can live this truth, you will stop fearing the end. You will begin to see endings as openings, losses as invitations, death as transformation. The pain will still come. Of course it will. But it will no longer own you. You will feel it fully. Then let it pass through you like wind through bamboo. The body bends. The soul remains still. To live with that understanding is to live freely. You stop hoarding time. You stop waiting for someday. You start noticing the smell of rain, the softness of skin, the trembling of leaves in the wind. Each moment becomes infinitely precious because you no longer expect it to last. You stop asking life to be permanent, and in doing so, you finally see how radiant it always was. Maybe that's what enlightenment truly is, not some distant celestial state, but a soft, constant awareness of impermanence, a way of seeing life not as a possession, but as a privilege. You wake up each morning not with the thought, I will live forever, but with gratitude that you get to live today. And when your own final moment comes, may you meet it the same way you met each breath, gently, consciously, without fear, because you'll know by then that nothing really ends. The breath you release becomes the air another breathes. The love you give outlives your body. The kindness you offer ripples through generations unseen. Death does not erase. It transforms. The wise don't fight death. They bow to it. They know that it's not a punishment but a promise. A reminder that we were never meant to hold forever. Everything we have, we borrow. Every heartbeat, every sunrise, every chance to say, I love you, all borrowed, all temporary, all sacred. And yet, in the middle of that impermanence, something eternal hums quietly, awareness. The same awareness that watched your first cry, your first love, your first heartbreak. The same awareness that will watch your final breath. That awareness is not yours or mine. It is the same in all of us. It is the great silence wearing 1,000 names, 1,000 faces, 1,000 lives. When you understand this, you stop clinging to life. And because you stop clinging, you begin to live fully. You stop fearing death. And because you stop fearing, you begin to love without boundaries. You stop asking for reasons. And because you stop asking, life becomes luminous, raw, whole. Everything is already complete. Even loss is complete. Even death is complete. There is no unfinished story. Only our resistance to turning the page. The moment you release that resistance, life unfolds as it was always meant to, effortlessly, endlessly, beautifully. So when the time comes, and it will breathe in deeply one last time, feel the warmth of this world, the miracle of being conscious, the brief dance of form and formlessness. And as you exhale, don't fight, don't reach, don't explain. Just let go, because in that final surrender, you won't disappear. You'll finally dissolve into what you've always been. The silence behind every sound, the light before every dawn, the space in which all reasons fade, and all truth remains. After death, there is not darkness. There is not light. There is only stillness, infinite, unbroken, tender. It is a stillness that has always been there, the one that existed before you were born, before your parents were born, before the first star ever ignited. It is not something you enter. It is what you have always been. You are not moving into eternity. You are simply remembering it. In that stillness, there are no names, no stories, no time, no boundaries between you and everything else. The river and the rain are the same. The breath and the breeze are one. The one who observes and what is observed are no longer separate. This is not the death of the self. It is a realization that the self was never real. What you called you was only a temporary pattern, a beautiful echo of something endless. You may ask, if everything is still, how can there be life? But the truth is, stillness is not the absence of life. It is a foundation of it. From stillness, all movement arises. Into stillness, all movement returns. It is like the space between notes in a song. Without it, there would be no music. The universe breathes in cycles of becoming and dissolving, birth and death, creation and silence. And the pulse behind all of it is stillness. This stillness is not cold. It is warm, vast, loving. It is what the Buddha called nirvana, the extinguishing not of life, but of illusion. It is peace beyond understanding, freedom beyond form. In it, there is no I, no you, no them, because those were never more than reflections on the surface of a boundless sea. And yet within this sea, the play of life continues. Waves rise and fall. Stars burn and fade. Souls meet and part. All within the same infinite awareness. Perhaps this is what reincarnation truly means. Not the rebirth of an identity, but the eternal dance of energy transforming into new expressions of love and awareness. A flower wilts and its essence becomes soil. The soil nourishes a new seed. The seed becomes a tree. The tree breathes out the air that becomes your next breath. You have been all of these things, and you will be all of them again, not as a memory, but as the pulse of life itself, endlessly transforming, endlessly alive. When you awaken to this, you stop fearing endings because you begin to see that nothing ever really ends. Life doesn't stop. It changes frequency. Consciousness doesn't vanish. It expands. The heart that breaks open in grief becomes a heart that overflows in compassion. Every loss deepens a well of love from which creation drinks. The sages have always said, "You are the universe, dreaming itself as a human." And when the dream ends, the dreamer does not die. The dreamer wakes up. You are that dreamer. You always were. The body was a doorway. The mind was a mirror. The soul was a song. And the silence that follows, that is your true home. In this infinite stillness, there is no suffering because there is no resistance. Pain only exists where there is a me to fight it, a you to own it. But here, in this vast field of awareness, even pain is seen as a ripple of energy, rising and falling, innocent, transient. There is no judgment, no guilt, no past or future, only the quiet unfolding of now. You realize then that heaven and hell were never places. They were states of consciousness. Heaven is this, the deep acceptance of everything, the complete surrender to what is. Hell is a forgetting, the illusion that you are separate, alone, incomplete. The moment you remember who you truly are, hell dissolves instantly, like mist before sunrise. And what remains is love. Not the love that depends, not the love that craves or clings, but love as the very nature of existence, silent, radiant, formless. The kind of love that does not need an object, because it is everything. It is a love that looks out through every pair of eyes, beats in every heart, flows in every river. It is the background hum of the universe, whispering, all is one, all is well, all is home. To live with this awareness, even for a single breath, is liberation. You walk differently. You see differently. You no longer ask, why did this happen to me? Instead, you ask, what is life showing me through this? You no longer chase meaning. You embody it. Every act becomes sacred. Every encounter reflection of the infinite. You look at the sky, and you realize you are looking at yourself. You feel the wind, and it feels like your own breath. You see the pain of another, and you recognize it as your own forgotten sorrow, calling to be held with tenderness. Compassion arises naturally, not from duty, but from recognition. You can no longer harm, because there is no other left to harm. This is the great freedom the Buddha spoke of, the end of duality, the awakening from the dream of separation. It is not a reward, not a place, not even a goal. It is simply seeing clearly. It is the natural state of being when the noise of the mind is quieted and the heart has remembered. And yet, this realization doesn't pull you away from life. It brings you closer. You return to the world, but differently. You still laugh, you still cry, you still love, but now you do so with open hands. You no longer need to hold on. You no longer fear the flow. You have become the river, moving effortlessly between form and formlessness, beginning and ending, life and death. This is the essence of awakening, not escape, but embrace. To see God not in heaven, but in the eyes of a stranger. To hear the truth not in scriptures, but in the sound of the rain. To touch eternity not in temples, but in the pulse beneath your own skin. And in the end, you realize you never needed to reach enlightenment. You only needed to remember what you already are, awareness itself, boundless and silent. Everything happens for a reason, yes, but not the kind of reason the mind can understand. The true reason is love expressing itself in infinite forms, teaching itself to see, to feel, to awaken. And when the play is done, when the last breath fades, when even memory dissolves, what remains is that love, untouched, unbroken, infinite. Stillness, awareness, home. After awakening, the world does not vanish. It remains, full of noise, full of movement, full of aching beauty. The same streets, the same people, the same endless tide of laughter and sorrow. But something within you has shifted forever. You no longer stand apart from it, judging or resisting. You are a part of the rhythm now, breathing in and out with existence itself. You have walked through the fire, and now you carry its quiet light within you. When you return to the world after silence, you see everything differently. The sunlight falling on an old wall looks holy. The wrinkles on a stranger's face look sacred. Even the arguments, the mistakes, the human clumsiness, they no longer seem like flaws, but the wild brushstrokes of a divine artist still painting creation. You understand that nothing is out of place, that everything, even the brokenness, belongs. You no longer need to prove anything. You no longer need to win, to rise, to be remembered. You begin to move gently, like wind through leaves, like water finding its path around stones. You speak less, but your words carry warmth. You act slower, but each gesture is filled with presence. People around you may not understand what changed. They just feel a calmness when you're near, as if life itself softens in your presence. This is a quiet power of one who has seen through the illusion of separation. You do not need to preach. Your being becomes a teaching. You do not need to convince. Your peace becomes a mirror in which others see their own. The Buddha called this the middle way. Not withdrawal from the world, not indulgence in it, but walking through the wake. To live with both feet on the ground and your heart in eternity. To chop wood, carry water, and yet know that every chop, every drop is sacred. You still feel sadness. You still feel pain. The enlightened do not stop being human. They simply stop resisting what is human. Pain no longer means suffering. It becomes tenderness. Grief becomes compassion. You learn to meet everything with the same quiet bow. The joy, the loss, the uncertainty, the miracle of a single breath. There are moments when the old mind tries to return, when ego whispers, "You are special now." But you smile, because you know awakening was never yours. It belongs to no one. It is life remembering itself through you. For a moment, through this form, this name, this story, and one day it will remember itself again through another. The dance continues, so you live simply. You listen more. You judge less. You offer help when you can and silence when you can't. You become the kind of person who doesn't add noise to the world. When others rage, you breathe. When others hurry, you pause. When others despair, you remain not detached, but steady, like the earth beneath their feet. You begin to see that enlightenment was never meant to take you out of the world. It was meant to bring you fully into it, to love without fear, to serve without expectation, to walk into the marketplace with open eyes and an open heart, carrying nothing but stillness. And that stillness begins to ripple quietly, invisibly. A kind word given to a stranger becomes a seed of healing. A moment of patience in chaos becomes a refuge for someone who is drowning. A single smile becomes a prayer that reaches farther than you'll ever know. The awakened don't build temples. They build moments of grace. You realize, too, that the true teacher is life itself. The rude driver, the crying child, the sick parent, the difficult co-worker. Each encounter is another mirror, another invitation to remain awake. You no longer look for spiritual experiences because this ordinary, imperfect, shimmering world is the experience. Enlightenment is not a mountain peak. It's a kitchen sink, a city bus, a single tear, a burst of laughter. You have returned, yes, but you have returned different. You no longer walk on the earth. You walk with it. Each step is a prayer. Each breath a thank you. Gratitude becomes your natural language. You begin to see every face as a reflection of the divine, even those who hurt you, especially those who hurt you, because you understand now. Pain is not punishment, it is guidance. It is life trying to wake itself through contrast. You no longer seek perfection, you seek presence. You no longer chase meaning, you live meaningfully. You no longer ask for answers, you rest in the mystery. And perhaps that is the final lesson. Enlightenment is not an escape from human experience. It is its full embrace. It is laughter through tears, light through shadow, love through loss. It is saying yes to everything, even the parts you once tried to erase. You understand, finally, that there was never a path, only this moment, opening endlessly. You realize that everything happens for a reason, was never about destiny or control. It was about trust. Trust that even in chaos, there is wisdom. Even in endings, there is beginning. Even in silence, there is love. And so you walk, barefoot through the noise, through the laughter, through the ache, carrying silence like a lantern, spreading light without effort, without claim, without end, because the journey is not about reaching heaven. It's about bringing heaven here, into the small, fragile, magnificent now. That is a return. That is awakening. That is home. Enlightenment is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of true living. After the silence, after surrender, after the dissolving of all illusions, life calls you back, not as a test, but as a continuation. The world that once seemed chaotic now becomes sacred ground, and every breath becomes a verse in an endless prayer. To live the Dharma, the living truth, is not to withdraw from the world, but to embody awareness within it. It is to carry stillness into motion, compassion into conversation, presence into every act, no matter how small. You don't need a monastery or robe or incense. The monastery is your mind. The robe is your kindness. The incense is your breath. When you wake in the morning, you no longer rush to chase the day. You begin with gratitude, not because everything is perfect, but because you can see it. You feel the quiet pulse of life beneath your hands, in your chest, in the air around you. Before words arise, there is awareness. Before thoughts appear, there is peace. You touch that peace first, and the whole day begins to move differently. You walk slower. You listen deeper. You speak softer. The world doesn't slow down, but your heart no longer races to keep up. You learn to live with time, not against it. You understand that everything unfolds exactly when it must, no sooner, no later. The impatient heart dissolves, replaced by a deep trust in the unseen intelligence that orchestrates all things. Living Dharma means letting go of control. Again and again, you stop trying to fix people, to fix yourself, to fix the moment. Instead, you meet life as it is. When someone hurts you, you don't react. You breathe. You feel the pain, yes, but you no longer build a story around it. You let the emotion rise, crest, and fall, like a wave dissolving back into the sea. Forgiveness happens naturally, because you understand that no one acts outside of their level of consciousness. Everyone is learning, stumbling, remembering, just like you. Dharma is compassion in motion. It is not passive. It is not fragile. It is a strength to remain open in a world that sometimes forgets how to love. When others shut down, you stay soft. When others judge, you understand. When others fear, you remind them through your being that everything passes, everything. To live this way is not to become indifferent. It is to become intimately alive. You begin to notice things others overlook. The laughter of a child echoing down a street, the tremor of sunlight across water, the way your own breath joins the rhythm of the trees. Everything becomes a dialogue with the divine. And yet, the living Dharma is not about floating above life. It is about walking directly into it, paying bills, making mistakes, getting tired, loving deeply. Enlightenment does not make you superhuman. It makes you deeply human. It strips away the false and leaves you raw, real, tender. You stop pretending. You start showing up fully. There will still be days of confusion, moments of anger, waves of grief. But now you hold them differently. You no longer drown in them. You witness them. You allow them. You let them move through without needing to make them mean anything. This is freedom, not the absence of emotion, but the absence of resistance. When you love fully, not because you need someone, but because love itself wants to move through you. When you work wholeheartedly, not for reward, but because the act itself is sacred. When you rest deeply, not from exhaustion, but from reverence for being alive. Every action becomes meditation. Every breath becomes a mantra. To live the Dharma is to live truth in the ordinary. It's the way you smile at the cashier, the patience you offer a child, the silence you hold when words would only wound. It's in the gentleness of your hands, the clarity of your eyes, the peace that follows you like a shadow. You begin to realize that the most spiritual thing you can do is to be kind, relentlessly kind to yourself, to others, to the world. Because kindness is not weakness. It is wisdom in action. It is the natural fragrance of awareness. When you are rooted in stillness, kindness blooms effortlessly. The living Dharma doesn't promise perfection. It promises authenticity. You no longer chase an ideal version of yourself. You live as you are, fully awake to the divine unfolding in every imperfection. You bow to the mystery, not because you understand it, but because you trust it. And trust changes everything. It turns anxiety into patience, fear into curiosity, pain into transformation. It makes you see that life was never something happening to you, but something happening through you. You are not the victim of the universe. You are its expression. In this understanding, even the simplest things glow. Washing dishes becomes a prayer. Driving in traffic becomes meditation. Listening to someone's pain becomes service. You no longer wait for special moments. Every moment is special. And when the world hurts, as inevitably will, you no longer turn away. You stay. You breathe. You help where you can. You hold space for others to remember what you have remembered. That beneath the chaos, beneath the fear, beneath all the noise, there is stillness. There is peace. There is home. This is the living Dharma. Not a doctrine, not a belief, but a way of being. It is awareness dressed in ordinary clothes. It is silence moving through sound. It is love that walks, breathes, and smiles through you. You no longer need to seek the light. You are the light. You no longer need to search for purpose. You live it in every act, every breath, every moment. And when night falls and silence returns, you sit quietly, not as a seeker, not as a teacher, but simply as presence itself, watching the stars, hearing the heartbeat of existence, whispering a single truth to the vastness of it all. I am here. I am aware. I am home. And so we arrive, not at the end, but at the quiet beginning that has always been waiting here. From the chaos of reason to the stillness beyond it, from loss to love, from seeking to surrender. You have walked through silence, through death, through light, and returned to life awake. Now you know, the purpose was never to escape the world, but to see its rawness, its beauty, its impermanence, and still say, yes. To love this fleeting world as it is, not as you wish it to be. To live not because you have answers, but because you trust the mystery. Everything happens for a reason, but not the kind your mind can measure. The reason is life itself, unfolding, breathing, teaching you to awaken in the middle of everything. Every heartbreak shaped your compassion. Every delay protected your timing. Every ending made space for another beginning. It was all love disguised as change. So now, take what you remembered, this stillness, this awareness, this unshakable peace, and bring it back into the noise of the world. Be the calm voice in a loud room. Be the hand that helps without needing to be seen. Be the one who listens, deeply, softly, completely. You don't have to preach. You don't have to prove. Just be. Let your presence do the teaching. Let your kindness do the work. Because the world doesn't need more noise. It needs more presence. It doesn't need more belief. It needs more being. So if these words touch something within you, carry them forward. Share them with those who have forgotten their light. Let this truth ripple quietly, endlessly, through every conversation, every gesture, every moment of grace. And when you breathe tonight, remember, you are not behind. You are not broken. You are exactly where you need to be, learning, unfolding, awakening. If this journey spoke to your heart, leave your footprint of light, a like, a share, a comment, not for vanity, but to let someone somewhere know they're not alone. Because maybe, just maybe, that's the real reason everything happens. So that one soul's awakening can awaken another. So breathe, smile, return. The Dharma is alive in you now. Carry it gently into the world. And wherever you go, go with awareness. Go with compassion. Go with peace. The journey continues, in you, through you, as you. Everything happens for a reason, and you are the reason it happens.